Yesterday, ClickZ sent me an article entitled Neuro-marketing, Why Fear Sells, Sex Doesn't. If you're interested, Google that. It is online. Also yesterday, I watched Rachel Maddow on MSNBC commenting on the news. Karl Rove had been called back to the White House to manage the latest Bush venture, the Bush Legacy Project. Rachel's conclusion was, the disastrous economy, the Iraq war and the 20% approval ratings are Bush legacy, no matter how the Lügen-Baron, that is German for liar baron, Karl Rove rewrites history. Maybe so, but this deserves a little more attention. Let's look at how we were bamboozled into the war. I think you remember Condoleezza Rices' famous aphorism, we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud. Now, if that is not selling fear, then I don't know what is. But it gets better. In order to justify to go to war, somebody invented the threat of Hussein buying uranium from Nigeria, probably believing that this was one of the Nigerian email scams. Ambassador Wilson was sent to Nigeria to investigate and reported there was no evidence whatever. Nevertheless, the White House claimed the evidence existed, at which time Wilson went public, only to be followed by Scooter Libby leaking the role of Wilson's wife being a CIA agent. After Dick Cheney falsified CIA intelligence to fit into the preconceived war justification, we invaded Iraq. Against the strong advice of Germany's then Chancellor Schröder and French President Chirac. The rest is history. Or is it? Maybe not completely. Add to the Bush legacy torture and cover-up. Take the case of the German citizen Khalid EL-MASRI. EL-MASRI had been confused with somebody else, was kidnapped while on a visit to Macedonia, was outsourced for torture in Afghanistan, was beaten, drugged, sexually abused, and was released. Make that dropped off in the woods of Albania, a half year later when the CIA realized it had the wrong guy. Represented by the ACLU, EL-MASRI sued CIA Director George Tenet, but got nowhere. The DOJ argued that even mentioning that he was outsourced would jeopardize national security. The courts, going along with that argument, refused to hear the case. The decision is somewhat puzzling, as at the time everybody knew already that the United States outsourced suspects for torture. Indeed, we knew it from George Bush's public admissions. The Supreme Court too refused to hear the case. Not so German prosecutors, who issued an arrest warrant for 13 CIA agents for a number of violations of international law. The White House didn't like that at all. Eventually, Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, a wussy by trade, gave in and said she would not insist on extradition. That, in turn, didn't go over so well with a number of German attorneys who began a lawsuit against the German government to force it to insist on extradition. Adding to Rachel Maddow's conclusions, Bush legacy includes outsourcing for torture. Now back to what sells better, fear or sex. Here are some news that will scare the bejeebus out of you. Jeb Bush, George W.'s brother, plans to run for office. for Florida's Senate position currently held by Mel Martinez. God help us, another Bush. First, Herbert Walker Bush managed to bring the economy to its knees within only one single term. George W. brought it to the borders of depression and engaged us in the Iraq War that was none of our business. Jeb Bush, in turn, has a history of cover-ups of official wrongdoings. Among others, the cover-up of torture in Florida's jails. Where did we hear the term torture before? Give him a chance, and our kids will die in Iran. We will have a true depression, and most likely we will continue outsourcing people for torture to whoever and wherever. Now, so that there is no misunderstanding, I have a severe intellectual problem with people who hijack planes and run them into buildings, killing 3,000 innocent people. I have an even bigger problem, if that is possible, with blasphemists who douse children with gasoline and set them on fire alive and claim that that is what the Quran is all about. Read my lips. These are the people who have contorted the Quran into truly satanic verses. All right, that's it for today. See you tomorrow.